If you desire to be happy, you can be. Of course, all of our brains work in exactly the same way, and we can retrain them. It also makes sense that if we have the power to change how our brain interprets past life situations, we can use the same technique to train our brain to see the world differently right now, and of course to see it through happier eyes. We can train ourselves to be happy. Happiness is simply a retraining of our brains, and this kind of retraining is fully backed by science. Neuroplasticity plays an important part in this learning process. Neuroplasticity is the terminology used in science for the replacing and changing of our neurons. Neurons, put simply, are nerve cells in the brain that transmit electrical impulses to other parts of the brain. For example, a neuron might be considered like a chip on a motherboard, sending and receiving electrical impulses within the brain of the computer. These computer chips or neurons make up what we actually think and believe, and there are approximately 100 billion of these tiny nerve cells in our brain. These neurons are created within us every time we learn something new. That's why there are so many. Imagine if you had typed in every single thing you had ever learned from a baby until today into a computer. That would have to be a big computer, yes? That's exactly what these neurons are. But thankfully for us, these neurons are not set in stone. They are bendable. You will know this if you ask yourself to remember how to do something that you have not practiced since a young age. Maybe you played piano as a child, or you learned a language. I always think back to learning Welsh in school. I certainly knew more Welsh back then when I was in school than I do now, because I certainly don't know the Welsh language anymore. In fact, I can barely remember a thing, but I actually studied Welsh for my GCSEs. When I needed Welsh in my mind, it was right there for me to pass my GCSEs. But now that I don't use Welsh in my everyday life, the Welsh has disappeared. The mind is very clever like this. It keeps the information that we need right there for us in an easy access pile in our subconscious. And so anything that we haven't used for a long time, it simply throws away. It does a regular clearing up of old things, and this is awesome for us, because that is why we are constantly able to learn new things. So happiness is actually a learned skill. For those of us who weren't happy previously and have discovered happiness later on in life, like me, it is actually a skill that we have had to learn. In fact, and what's great, is that you and I can train our minds to look for happiness in absolutely anything. How do I know that? I can tell you that I have tried it, even in personal and extreme cases. When I lost my home, my job, and my whole lifestyle in one day, I struggled at first to see anything positive in the situation. You might say I was feeling justified for my unhappiness. I thought I had lost too much in one day, and sadness was easy for my brain to find. It took me a while and some carefully placed effort, but I started day by day to search for the happiness in what had gone on in my life. And what happened to me from that experience was something rather miraculous. I started to become aware that happiness was everywhere. In fact, I could find it in everything and anything. For example, no, I didn't have a home of my own, but my parents had seen to it that I wasn't out on the street. No, I didn't have a vehicle, but I had transport very close to me where I was staying, and I could get anywhere using that transport. No, I didn't have money I was earning yet, but they were opportunities to earn money everywhere, and I had skills that I could use. In fact, no, I didn't have a laptop of my own, but my mother wasn't always using hers and had access to libraries that had Wi-Fi and computer access for free. You see, for everything that I could have complained about, there was a blessing right there to be appreciated for. I realized and finally understood that my happiness depended upon absolutely nothing except me. All I had to do was choose to see what was happy in any situation, and I could. This was a truly enlightening experience. For me, my whole happiness had been built upon the life that I had achieved, the people around me, the goals that I had. When all of that disappeared and when it seemed impossible to be happy, finding happiness was the most euphoric moment of my life. I suddenly became a happier person and everything started to change. My journey through life had always been about happiness, and now I had learned that I could be happy despite. I could be happy regardless. I could be happy no matter what. I had reached a point where I had retrained my neurons to believe that happiness existed everywhere. This, of course, led me to write my book. This book is about the transformational journey from unhappiness into happiness. I have gathered together the lessons I have learned along the way, the formulas I have used to become happy despite, and the ideas that I have had that have helped me to push through obstacles. I have taken all these lessons and simplified them into an easy to understand system that can be broken down and used for training anyone into happiness. I would love this book to encourage you to find you're happy regardless and start living your dream life. I think you'll find that happiness is only one step away. But first you have to ask yourself a really important question. The big question now is, do you really want to be happy? As we get to the next part of the book, you have to ask yourself if happiness means enough to you for you to work towards having more of it in your life, because it will take work. My eureka moment only appeared after years of study, after years of understanding, and years of practice, and I still practice these happiness skills every single day. And I'm fully aware that this is a very personal journey. And just like some people are happy enough to be a little overweight and not necessarily aim for that six-pack, you have to ask yourself if you have a genuine desire to be truly happy. Chances are, if you're reading this book, a part of you is searching for happiness and doesn't really know how to attain it. If that is you, then I suggest that you join me on this journey and we learn together. Try out some of the systems in this book and see how they work for you. If, of course, you decide to do this and aim for a happy life, there is something that you need to be aware of before you embark on this mission, and that is that you will not achieve total bliss overnight. Learned happiness is a result of continued effort towards thinking differently about your life. Sometimes you will have days when you feel like you don't even want to be happy about what's going on. Sometimes you will forget about things like appreciating and get to the end of the day and think, oh, I haven't really enjoyed today as much as I could have. And sometimes you will do everything you can to feel happy and end up wondering why you've bothered. If you've ever tried learning something new in life, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We all get those days on our diets when we just give in and have lots of chocolate cake just because we don't fancy salad. We all have those times in learning to drive when our driving instructor asks us what happened because we totally forgot everything we'd been learning about up until that point. We all have those days when putting money into a savings account just seems too boring and we go and spend it on sweeties. That's okay. That's part of the process. Please do not feel guilty when these things happen. Please do not tell yourself that you failed. Please do not give up and quit because you had one day off. In fact, doing any of these things when your goal is happiness takes you totally off course. It's like turning your back and walking back down the mountain just because you tripped upon a stone on the way up. Instead, when you notice these things have happened, just relax about it and tell yourself that you'll do better tomorrow. I always think back to my yo-yo dieting phase when I think about this. I would diet really strictly for months at a time. I'd get to that really happy weight where I'd feel really good, and then I'd make one mistake and eat something I considered bad, and then I'd give up and I'd eat the bad stuff every day until I had put the weight on again. That was my dieting cycle for years on end. It was only with my most recent diet that I actually said to myself, if I have one bad day, it's okay. And because of that approach, I have been consistently dieting for 3 years straight with the odd day off and nothing more. And I have consistently lost weight and am now at my desired weight and still losing. Don't do it to yourself. Don't yo-yo your happiness. It will take far longer to get to your goal of happiness if you beat yourself up every time you have a bad day. Just remind yourself that you are learning this. It is a skill. Very few of us have been taught total happiness from day one. That is because unhappiness is one of the greatest problems this world has. If the numbers are correct and 85% of the population are unhappy, then it is likely that you, your parents, and those around you are struggling with their own happiness also. So, you probably weren't taught happiness from a young age. But it's okay. You also weren't taught to drive as a toddler, or to learn accounting, or how to run a company. These are all learned skills. Happiness can become second nature to you if you take the time to hone your skill. Keep yourself topped up daily with the systems in this book, and read through the next few sections, which explain why the tools in the second half of the book have been used. So if you're set on taking the path to happiness, and you're ready to take this journey with me, let me begin by introducing you to the very first, and what I consider to be the most important step of all in this entire process.